start us off is Angela Bennett. She's our Title IX Coordinator and Cleric Compliance Officer here at Vanguard University. She's actually, though, a prior law enforcement for almost 20 years, working both at Chula Vista Police Department and the Huntington Beach Police Department. She primary responsibility for investigations of human trafficking. Come on up, don't be shy. And working sex crimes and crimes against children, all the stuff that gives you nightmares. So as part of her work against victims, or for victims, Angela saw a need for education in cyber safety, specifically for parents and teen and preteen students. So she developed a course for parents at local high schools, middle schools, churches, and community groups. She's spoken to hundreds of families and victims who've been affected by crimes utilizing the internet and social media. And she's passionate about education for both parents and teens. I think you'll enjoy her speech. Angela.
Hi everybody, my name is Angela, but I go by Angie. So today I'm going to focus a little bit about how I got into this. So again, I was in law enforcement for about 20 years. I've also worked in higher education prior. A fun fact, I worked in television media, don't hold that one against me. And also I am now here at Vanguard doing Title IX, which is any type of sexual misconduct and equity in athletics, essentially, for all of our students. So as a police officer, I guess I always like to talk first though, and most importantly, my number one most important job is as a mother. I think many of you can relate, right? We go to work every day, but our number one most important job is as a mother or as a parent. So I have two kids, and these poor kids, they have been used as my examples for years. Luckily, they've never really seen me speak, so that's helpful. I have a son who's 19 and a daughter who's 17. So we're gonna reverse back to when my daughter was in 2nd grade. I always said that my kids did not need to have video games. I was very against video games. I didn't like the violence. I didn't like all the things that were associated with video games, like not doing exercise and not being outside. So I was that mean mom that never allowed them to have that stuff. I finally caved. My son was, I think, in 4th or 5th grade, and I allowed them to have Roblox. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. I mean, again, this is several years ago, so it was one of the newer ones. It wasn't violent. I was totally comfortable with it until, I think it was a Saturday night at about 10 p.m. My kids were playing on it. It was a weekend, so it was okay that they were up late, and I heard my daughter giggling by herself in a room. And I'm all, what is she doing? I didn't know this game was fun. Let me just say, I am one of those parents. I wouldn't call myself a helicopter parent, but I am very involved in what they're doing. They didn't have phones, none of this stuff, right? I was extremely strict, I think. Go over to see what my daughter's doing, and I say, what are you doing? Why are you laughing so hard? And she's like, oh, I'm talking to so-and-so. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? I had no idea, guys, no clue that you could talk to people on video games. So here I am, little Miss Police Officer, thinking I'm so involved in my kids' lives. I know exactly what they're doing. What's happening. I know it's very common these days that people know that you can talk to others on video games. I had no idea. I hadn't done my research. But boy, if you would have come up to me and asked me, oh, you're gonna go ahead and let them do video games? Okay. And I really wasn't very informed, clearly. Turns out, she was not only talking to someone, she was talking to an adult male, and that adult male was her 2nd grade teacher's husband. Super, unbelievably inappropriate, right? You can imagine I lost my mind. Anyway, so this is how I got involved in teaching our community about what we needed to do to help protect our kids, right? Again, police officers, someone who felt that they were very proactive in their children's lives. I was not doing my job. I think it's extremely easy for us to not. Can you go to the next slide for me? One more. Thank you. So I think that one of the things that I wanted to share with you today is not only my personal experience, and I have I was just telling these guys, I mean, we all have war stories in law enforcement. We can tell you all the horrible things that we've seen and all the horrible things that we've encountered, but this was personal in my life, which is why I felt it was so important for me to learn a little humility, first of all, but also to share my experiences and the different things I have seen in law enforcement. So some of the things I want to talk to you today are about what our kids, and this is up to and including our college-age kids, because I don't know about you guys, but if you have college-age kids, I still consider them my kids, even though they're adults is what I mean. But this is the stuff they're seeing online. Oh wait, can you go back? Oh no, I'm sorry. Are we on cyberbullying? Okay, so these are the things that we're gonna see. These are also the things I see as the Title IX coordinator here, again, handling cases of sexual misconduct. So one of the bigger ones is cyberbullying. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the news, but the Taylor Swift one was one that came out about 2 or 3 weeks ago. A lot of newer things that are happening is with artificial intelligence. So that is essentially when someone's taking a picture of me that they're pulling off social media, because let's pretend that all my stuff is open and not private, and now they can take a picture of me and put somebody else's body on my head. Super easy, right? I think we all know that this is going on. Well, now let's pretend that you're a 13-year-old kid and this is happening to you, right? I forget where it was. I just saw it this week, but there was a big concern. Oh, it was somewhere up in LA. That there was a big concern where a student made a whole bunch of AI images of several students in middle school up in LA. That is terrifying, right? Now, it would be really easy for us to say, as law enforcement, as a teacher, as a parent, what's the big deal, right? It's not you, just let it go. Just tell them it's not me, it's AI. Well, okay, that's really easy, but psychologically and emotionally, that's extremely hard for our young kids to deal with. So you will keep hearing me over and over again. Every time I speak, I'm gonna say that this all starts with the communication that we have with our kids, right? If kids aren't having these communications with their parents, now I don't know what role everybody is in, but somebody needs to have the conversations, right? I think that one of the bigger concerns that I see people do, or the bigger concerns I have, is that people are quiet about this stuff. They don't want to talk about it because it's a touchy subject, right? Talking about your head being on a naked person's body is extremely uncomfortable for some people, right? Probably for most kids. I think that would be an uncomfortable conversation to have. But if we don't talk about it and if we don't address it, then I think that's going to be the bigger concern. So I think this is something we should all be aware of. The AI is out there, and it's very possible that you could have a student or you could have a child who comes to you and says that this has happened to them. This is a form of cyberbullying. The best way to deal with this is to take screenshots and save every image that is being done of you, right? If somebody's harassing you or sending you messages over and over again, then you definitely want to keep those as screenshots for law enforcement so they can initiate an investigation. But also, it's important to block the person, because again, psychologically, I think it's much more important for our kids to not have to see these images over and over again. Can you go to the next slide, please? Oh, one thing, I think most kids keep their passwords private, but how many times have you been sitting next to somebody in an airplane, restaurant, whatever, and they're so callous about how they put in their password, you easily know what their password is. That's another really important thing to tell your kids. Keep your passwords private and always have them private. Another big issue that's happening right now, I don't know if any of you guys watch Mariana Van Zeller. She's a journalist, and she has a show called Trafficked on National Geographic. It's fascinating. She does all kinds of underworld investigations, and she just did one on sextortion. Sextortion is just that. It's when you take some type of an explicit image, so that's where the sex comes in, and then you put extortion with it. So essentially, it's somebody asking me for an image. So let's say that I'm 13 years old, again, we'll keep using that age, and I'm chatting with someone online, and they ask me for an illicit image of myself. It's either a picture or a video. They get one, and we've been chatting for, it could be weeks, it could be months. These people are very, very patient, and they're very manipulative, so don't forget about that. That they'll take months to try and groom a person. They'll ask for this image, and then the next thing you know, they're asking you for another one, and then they're asking them for another one. And they say, if you don't give me another image, then I will send this to your parents, I'll send this to your teachers, I'll send this to everybody in your contact list, and you're going to be the laughingstock, right? That's one form of sextortion. That's the sex-based content. The second type is for financial purposes. This is a growing thing that has been going on, and for all you college students in here, the target age of this is men who are between the ages of 17 and 24. So this is when you're a hot chick and you ask some guy for your photo, and he sends a photo to the girl, and it turns out it's some guy. And I think that what Mariana Van Zeller, she just did this big expose on it. She said I think a lot of them are in Nigeria, but it's not here, right? It's not in the United States, and certainly not a young girl that thinks you're cute. It's somebody that's going to take your picture, and then they're going to extort you for money. All of these sound, a lot of times I hear a lot of people saying, oh, well, like sextortion, that sounds like something that happens elsewhere. I mean, I haven't been in law enforcement for about 4 years. I've been retired, and I still get phone calls from my friends and acquaintances that say, my son just drained his bank account. I have no idea why. And this was like an 18, 19-year-old acquaintance of mine, their son, who drained his entire bank account because he was devastatingly afraid of being shamed and outed because he had sent these pictures out. The effects of the victims on this is huge. Just last year alone, there were 20 suicides in this country of young men who were so despondent over the fact that they had shared these explicit images of themselves that they ended up committing suicide. The thing is, it's very shameful, right? It's hard to say to your mom when you're 19 years old, hey, I shared a naked photo of myself with somebody. It turned out not to be the person I thought I was sharing it with, and now I've given them all of my entire savings account, right? That's hard to do. That's why we talk about it. That's why I send these things to my son who's 19 years old. And I say, hey, did you know that in sextortion, it's typically women don't typically ask for nude pictures? It's really like guys that are gonna be asking you for that. So if somebody asks you for a nude picture, don't send it. Right? It's like, yeah, mom, I got it. Like, we've been talking about this since I was 13 years old. Oh, okay, I'm gonna keep talking about it. So some of the things that I've told my kids and other people that I've met through law enforcement and just my friends, because I've been kind of the person that they all go to ask these questions of, don't provide the content in the first place, right? Don't leave your computer sitting open like this where somebody could hack into your web camera or your phone camera when you're in the restroom, right? Just don't do it. Don't have it around you as much. I put in there breakups are common. Who can you trust? I think that's a really important one for young people, right? They think, okay, well, he's sharing, it's somebody I know, he's sharing photos of me, I'll share photos of myself. Well, when breakups happen, things get ugly, right? Oftentimes. And then we get into the whole idea of revenge porn, which is finally a law here, which is great. Those are the types of things that we have to open up and talk to them about. Again, I'm talking to my daughter about that stuff all the time, and she gets very embarrassed. My son is cool because I guess we've been talking about it for so long, but my daughter gets very embarrassed. But okay, too bad, you're embarrassed. But it's information that we need to know. Can you go to the next slide, please? So these are all the things that I think that are just difficult conversations. When my kids finally did get phones, my son finally got a phone when he was in middle school because he had to ride his bike to school, and I was worried about him, so that was more about me than it was about him, right? I think I wish I would have waited longer, if you want me to be honest, but we always had a rule. The rule was you don't take your phone in your room overnight. You put your phone away at 10 o'clock at night, and it stays downstairs where my husband and I could see it, and they'd never had their phones in their room. I've had a lot of students even here at Vanguard that have come into my office and have told me about addiction to pornography. And we're at a Christian school, that's a very embarrassing and difficult thing for them to talk to me about. So I'm not saying that the way to never be addicted to pornography is to not let your kids have their phones in the room, but it certainly helped me have a better idea of what was going on at night and that my son wasn't up all night. When I was in law enforcement, I had a case where a kid, we did a search warrant on his house, and the reason that we did that is because he was downloading hundreds of images of child pornography. And he told me one of the reasons is because, and he was a minor, and one of the reasons he told me he did that is because he had been addicted to porn for so long, he got bored with regular porn, and so he had to go to child porn because he knew it was more risque or more, like it was more exciting to him because he couldn't get enough information just from regular porn. So that's another thing that I think is an incredibly thing for us to talk about. In my work now, I've seen how it can really desensitize some kids. And so I've had them where the kids will tell me they've been addicted to porn, and then they acted out in a way to where they sexually assaulted someone because they just had it in their faces all the time, constantly. The chatting and the grooming on social media and gaming, that is my horror story that started this whole thing for me about, I don't know, what is it, 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, with my daughter and my son not having information. I think it's important that we know what kids can do, like what they can get involved with and what their capabilities on each one of these games or the social media or the Snapchat, all of the things I think we need to know. I'm not a huge proponent of having the apps on phones to watch kids' every moves. It's just not what I think I wanted to do as a parent. I've always suggested that I think it's all about communication. I have a degree in communication. Of course I think it's about communication, right? So I think that the best thing that has worked for me and what I have told hundreds of parents is that the idea is not to take it from them. I had a good friend who told me that her daughter was doing the wrong thing on Snapchat, In other words, she was on there all the time and she was sending pictures she shouldn't have been sending, so she took Snapchat away from her daughter, took her phone. So what her daughter did was she snuck into her sister's room in the middle of the night, stole her phone, downloaded her Snapchat onto the sister's phone, and stayed up all night on her sister's phone, right? So instead of perhaps just taking it away from them, the idea is to educate them and to teach them, prepare them for the pressure. The pressure is there. They're going to see the stuff online. It's there, it's not hard to find, and it's one of those things that I think we could make sure that we're being proactive as parents and educators as much as we can. So, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about was online dating. I think this is one of those things that if something seems suspicious, can you go to the next slide too? If something seems suspicious as a student or a young person, it's probably too good to be true, right? That could come along with rental scams, with social media stuff, like how a person portrays themselves. It's so important to get to learn who a person is in person. And when you are going to meet someone on a dating app, or when you're going to go purchase something online, you do it with a buddy. You always tell somebody what you're doing. You're thinking about and always being prepared for perhaps the worst thing that could happen. Overall, my best advice is to talk to kids. Again, as parents, talk to your kids as much as you can. As grandparents, talk to your kids as much as you can. As educators, figure out a way to get people to come to your school to talk to your parents. I've done very few lectures or engagements in front of students. Most of them have been to parents, and they have been successful in the fact that I get parents to come in and ask me the questions. I get called back, and it's one of those things that I think is super important, that we as parents take the control over the phones and make sure that we're doing what we can to keep our kids safe. Thank you guys very much.